an anti-drone defense.
Yeah.
That's the threat we have to be worried about. That you might be able to do something about. Those are the real new challenges, not this old, outdated, discredited idea of a shield to protect America from ballistic missiles the way a roof protects a family from rain, as Ronald Reagan
Right.
told a high school graduating class.
Right. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to push through some important things because your article in the New Republic talks about Elon Musk, and as you mentioned SpaceX, the public Twitter divorce happening between the president and Musk notwithstanding. You've all pointed out that Musk's legacy or his machinations within the world of defense contracting are really quite troubling. That regarding the Golden Dome, there's evidence that the Pentagon has maybe even sidestepped the usual procurement process in dealing with SpaceX, that they've even perhaps engaged in a subscription model for Musk-based services versus conventional contracts. I mean, this sounds all kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, when Musk was with Doge, he was suspected of using his influence to lobby for SpaceX getting a big chunk of this Golden Dome contracts. In fact, 44 Democrats wrote a letter to the Inspector General of the Department of Defense asking him to investigate, including my friend, the late Jerry Connolly, in his role as the vice chair, the ranking member of the Government Oversight Committee. And they believe that Trump got special treatment. In other words, he used his public office for private gain, which, of course, is a violation of law and ethics regulations. And, part of that is to position SpaceX to launch these thousands of satellites. So you can imagine what kind of lucrative contract that could be. And he also apparently proposed that the United States would not own these satellites, but Elon Musk would.
Right.
And that he would set up a subscription service the way he does for Starlink, and so the U.S. would rent the services from these satellites, not own the satellites directly, which, of course, is a very lucrative revenue stream, but not at all in the national security interest of the United States.
How about a complete, violation of national security?
There you go.
I mean, look.
Now, whether any of this will maintain, we don't know. I mean, in some ways, they each have each other in a tough place. Trump is the one who's awarding the contracts, but Musk is the one who has the capability. If they decide that SpaceX is not available to launch these satellites, well, who is going to launch them?
Right. Okay. Wow. Subscription services for defense in space is a whole nother universe that I didn't think we would get into, but we have about 2 minutes left, and there's something important I want to wrap up with, and we're going to return to President Reagan, and here he is in 1985 confronting SDI doubters.
Many of the vocal opponents of SDI, some of them with impressive scientific credentials, claim our goal is impossible. It can't be done, they say. Well, I think it's becoming increasingly apparent to everyone that those claiming it can't be done have clouded vision. Sometimes smoke gets in your eyes. Sometimes politics gets in your eyes.
He was a genius, really a genius communicator. But then he added this as proof of SDI's purpose and utility.
If this project is as big a waste of time and money as some have claimed, why have the Soviets been involved in strategic defense themselves for so long? And why are they so anxious that we stop?
Okay, Joe, you mentioned something like this a little earlier, and we have to give Reagan credit for this. He wasn't necessarily just saying it's good for America and defense, but he actually also saw it as a way to forestall mutually assured destruction.
Right. That's the visionary part. That's the compelling part. Why should we live under this Damocles nuclear sword, right? So I get that part. And the Soviets, in fact, still the Russians, do in fact still maintain an anti-missile system of 100 interceptors around Moscow. Those 100 interceptors are tipped with nuclear warheads. So this is still going back to the 60s or 70s, not hit to kill, but get close enough to destroy the incoming missile. When we asked the Joint Chiefs in hearings, were we worried about that missile defense system around Moscow? They said no. We're confident of our ability to penetrate it. If they have 100 interceptors, we will target 200 warheads. Bang. Simple. It's much cheaper to have the warheads than the interceptors. And then, of course, you could have stealth technology, maneuvering warheads, all other kinds of things to penetrate any known defense. So Ronald Reagan had his chance, and others since then. We have given them the money. We have given them the time. If this thing was going to work, it would have worked by now. Where is it? No one in the world has a national missile defense system. No one. It's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of resources. You just can't do this.
Space-based missile defense, yeah.
Any kind. I mean, nothing that works. The ground-based interceptors we have a system. They've never actually been tested against countermeasures.
What about the Iron Dome?
I'm talking, this is the difference between national missile defense, protecting a whole country, and protecting a port or a city. You could intercept short-range missiles that fly tens or hundreds of kilometers. You cannot intercept long-range missiles reliably that fly thousands of kilometers. That's the difference.
But apparently we have money to spend to try and make this impossibility happen. Meanwhile, Medicaid, who needs it? Joe Cirincione, national security analyst, longtime expert in nuclear non-proliferation, former vice president for national security at the Center for American Progress, also served in Congress. Joe, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you.
Megan, it's a real treat. Thank you for having me on.
And by the way, we have a link to Joe's article, which was in the New Republic, about President Trump's Golden Dome. That's at onpointradio.org. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. This is On Point.
On Point is a production of WBUR Boston and is distributed by APM, American Public Media.
Support for On Point comes from BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 30,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public. And the Mehrotra Institute for Business, Markets, and Society, hosting the Is Business Broken podcast, featuring conversations with academics, industry leaders, and politicians. More at ibms.bu.edu.
This is KUOW-FM Seattle, KUOW Tumwater, KQOW Bellingham. It is Friday and it's almost noon. That means it's almost time for KUOW's Week in Review. Here to tell you about today's show is the host, Bill Radke.
Review. We have local politicians resigning, refusing to resign, former politicians running to be politicians again. An early summer in a dry forest. Oh, angry Seattle Sounders players. Owner of the Sounders angry at the angry players. It's not all contentious. I'm making it sound very loggerheads, but some things made us smile this week, and we always we share that with you. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Sunny and 72 degrees in Seattle. The forecast is for a mostly sunny afternoon with a high of 78. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low in the mid-50s. Tomorrow, sunny again, and again a high of 78. Sunday and Monday, both sunny with highs in the mid-80s. It's 12 o'clock.
Support for KUOW comes from the Bellingham Farmers Market, supporting agriculture with farmers, artisans, and other producers from Whatcom and Skagit counties. This 100-stall market is 90 minutes north of the Seattle metro region. Open Saturdays from 10 to 2. Info at bellinghamfarmersmarket.org. And from Enjoy Port Townsend, hosting a festival for the restoration and relighting of the original Fresnel lens at Point Wilson Lighthouse, Saturday, June 7th from noon to 4, featuring lighthouse tours, interactive maritime exhibits, food, and live music for all ages. More at pointwilsonlighthouse.org.
Seattle summer is right around the corner, and with the new and improved KUOW app, it's never been easier to listen local on the go. On a road trip, a favorite hike, with headphones, or headed to a happy hour. You can listen live or catch up on your favorite local podcasts anytime and anywhere. Download the KUOW app now for iOS or Android.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Migrant detainees are staging protests at an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Miami. On Thursday, they lined up in the courtyard of the Chrome Detention Center and spelled out the letters SOS with their own bodies. NPR's Jasmine Guards has been following the conditions there.
This facility has had problems for years, and right now we're seeing severe overcrowding. Detainees have reported illnesses, limited access to medication. One of the first tips we received about Chrome was from a woman named Maria. She asked that her last name be withheld to protect her brother, who she says has had a serious eye infection with a fever for 2 weeks and hasn't gotten medication.
That's NPR's Jasmine Guards reporting from Miami. The Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to step in and allow it to continue dismantling the Department of Education. NPR's Corey Turner has more.
The administration needs the Supreme Court's help after a federal judge in Massachusetts told the administration to reinstate the nearly 1,400 employees it has already put on leave on the way to firing them. The judge's concern was that the department, at roughly half its former size, was failing to perform important duties. In its request for the Supreme Court to intervene, the Trump administration argued, quote, "The Constitution vests the executive branch, not district courts, with the authority to make judgments about how many employees are needed to carry out an agency's statutory functions. It's not clear how quickly the court will move or what it will decide." Corey Turner, NPR News.
The European Union is joining the International Criminal Court in blasting the Trump administration for punishing judges for tribunal investigations. Terry Schultz reports legal communities around the world are criticizing the move, which could impact global justice efforts.
President Trump has slapped sanctions on 4 judges from the ICC in retaliation for their work on the tribunal's probes into alleged war crimes committed by U.S. personnel in Afghanistan and by Israel in the West Bank and Gaza. The judges from Benin, Peru, Slovenia, and Uganda will have any U.S.-based assets frozen. European Commission spokesperson Paolo Pino says the EU remains committed to the ICC.
This court holds perpetrators of the world's gravest crimes to account and gives victims a voice. It must be free to act without pressure.
In February, the Trump administration banned the chief prosecutor and other non-American employees of the court from entering the U.S. and warned of more measures to come. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
Stocks are trading higher on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was up 447 points, the Nasdaq up 272. This is NPR News.
This is KUOW News. I'm Paige Browning with our top stories. The Enchantments Wilderness area in Washington is now closed while authorities look for Travis Decker, the Wenatchee father charged with killing his 3 daughters. Authorities have also closed several campsites in the area, along with parts of the Pacific Crest Trail, the Thunder Creek Trail, and others in the North Cascades National Park Service Complex. There's been no sign of Decker since Friday. That's when he picked up his daughters for a scheduled visit. Their bodies were found Monday at a campground near Leavenworth. A fund has raised more than $1 million for the mother. Upwards of 30,000 grocery workers at local Safeway, Albertsons, QFC, and Fred Meyer stores have voted to authorize a strike. The union, UFCW 3000, says the final votes tallied last night show more than 97% of its members decided to reject the latest contract offer from Kroger and Albertsons. Kroger told King 5 the company's latest offer includes better pay and investments in health care. The Portland, Oregon City Council has voted to approve an $8.5 million settlement for descendants of Black Portlanders whose neighborhood was destroyed. In the 1940s, North Portland was a bustling Black community, but in the following decades, the city used racist zoning practices to displace families from their homes. Descendant Royal Harris told counselors those actions directly changed the trajectory of families.
What we are here for is redress, the acknowledgement of harm that includes a reversal from that practice and includes the true and proper compensation for that victimization.
The agreement will also return 2 parcels of land to the descendants at no cost. 72 degrees already in Seattle, expecting highs near 78 today, 78 tomorrow, and 84 Sunday and Monday. This is KUOW News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their clients' best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to Friday. Welcome to KUOW's Week in Review. I'm Bill Radke. We're going to review the week. Otherwise, we'd have to change the name of the show. We are going to review this week in news, some of the big, most interesting things that happened. And we have interesting people here. KUOW politics reporter and co-host of our Sound Politics podcast. Hey, Scott Greenstone.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you along. Former Urbanist Executive Director and current board member, Rian Watt. Welcome back.
Great to be back.
And political analyst and contributing columnist. Welcome back, Joni Balter.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you all. Let's make sure her microphone's on. Thank you, Scott. Yeah. Let's see. We're live streaming the show on YouTube, so you can see us. I'm wearing a wetsuit, as you can see.
How is that
And
a
it's why is
wetsuit?
it's so wet?
Yeah.
Why is it wet? You're dripping.
Hey, that isn't even a wetsuit.
Well, see, Lake Washington, I looked it up, is 57 degrees.
If you were watching the live stream right now, you'd know that you could fact check me on whether or not I
Right.
was wearing a dripping wet wetsuit.
And it could be a metaphorical wetsuit.
Were you in the water today?
Well, I'm thinking the sound last night that you heard was me inflating my paddleboard and getting out my wetsuit, because it's sort of I don't know if it's a warning to people that the lake is still cold and the Puget Sound is still cold. But on the other hand, I think I'm still going to try it on Sunday when it's 80-something degrees.
There you go.
Yeah. It'll wake you up.
It will wake me
if
up.
nothing else.
Get in that water.
Yeah. If you see gray hair bobbing and one hand waving and the other on a whistle, just stop by and check on me.
Pull you out.
Please, please. Well, what's going on with you all? What's hot and cold with you?
We're all gathered together here to do this show, and
We were already arguing before.
we've already been arguing.
We basically had a whole
arguing
other
friendly,
show
lovey way.
Yeah, like Donald and Elon.
Oh, just
There
like
we
it. Thanks for the
There we go.
the idea.
I'm not going to say this is my thing at the end for why I'm smiling, but it is funny to walk around the streets of Seattle to see, the people I know who are all Seattleites. Just, it's the best news story for them of the year so far, this Donald Trump and Elon Musk breakup. They are loving it. They're giggling. Rep. Adam Smith, a congressman, tweeted, "Far be it from me to offer Trump advice, but if he wants to get back at Musk, there's a simple option. Send ICE after him. Deport him for lying about his immigration history when he applied for citizenship. Come on, Don. Don't let Musk push you around." I can almost hear him giggling and kicking up his feet as he tweets that.
The biggest day for popcorn sales in Seattle that we've seen, because people just digging, watching it. I'd like to know who's going to host the reunion. And
they're going to get back together and celebrate.
I would say some Seattleites are concerned about that.
Yeah. Okay, should we talk about local news?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay. We have a lot of political news. Scott, I'm especially glad you're here today because there's a lot of politics news. Starting with Marxist in Congress, ? Former Seattle City Council member Kshama Sawant announced this week she is running for Adam Smith's congressional seat in the 9th District, and she is not running to represent the capitalist class.
I represent the working class of the 9th Congressional District, and yes, there are going to be billionaires and multimillionaires in this district who are going to be angry. There are going to be Zionist lobby members in this district who are going to be angry with us. I don't represent them.
So this is 9th District, South Seattle and King County's near east suburbs.
Yeah.
Scott, what's something that those voters should know about Kshama Sawant and Adam Smith?
Well, so Adam Smith is the incumbent. I just read a tweet that he tweeted about Musk, and he has been in that position since the 90s, and for the last decade, he has not gotten under, if I remember rightly, 60%. Socialists have come at him several times. When they even make it through the primary, they don't even get half the votes he did. However, none of them were as well known as Kshama Sawant, particularly to Seattle. Seattle's only about 1 in 5 voters in this district live in Seattle. Most of them live in Bellevue,
Mercer
Federal
Island.
Way, down to Auburn, Kent. So, she is running primarily criticizing his ties with Israel. His biggest funder, according to Open Secrets, is the pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. He also has some defense funders. So she'll go really hard on that. But, in the end, most of this district is very Democratic and not looking like they'll abandon him anytime soon.
Joni, maybe you should tell listeners about because Kshama Sawant's been out of office for a little while. What should we know about her? Adam Smith's been around for how many terms? 30 years
1997, I think, is when he took office.
So Kshama Sawant came on the scene, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that, and largely discussing the minimum wage for Seattle.
Not just discussing,
helping to pass. But people do forget that it also took the mayor then that people don't talk too much about anymore, Ed Murray, who had the cachet to bring everybody together. But I digress. Let's go over here. Kshama Sawant brought in, lefty politics to the city. Things like defund the police, just a whole bunch of left policies that the council went with her sometimes and sometimes not.
She's a Marxist economist who taught at Seattle U.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Up against a man who shares the same name as the father of economics and capitalism, Adam Smith, the Scottish philosopher.
If you search for Adam Smith and you forget to put REP period first, you get all that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I just kind of want to address this race a little bit. There's not going to be, people have been calling around trying to figure out, is there going to be a lot of labor money for someone other than perhaps Kshama Sawant before she announced, to maybe help someone like Teresa Mosqueda, former Seattle City Councilwoman, who was thinking of this race. So is there going to be that kind of money? And from what I'm hearing, no, there isn't. And so that's one thing.
Why? Where's labor putting its money?
I don't think they want to fight Adam Smith with that much,
comfortable margins.
That comfortable margin, 65-32 last time against Melissa Chaudhry.
Let's just be clear. Kshama is not. She's very divisive, even in labor circles. Many in the unions don't really like her either.
Well, and as you said, look, I think she's here again. She's in this race really early in the cycle. She misses the microphone limelight. She loves that. And as you were suggesting, the 9th congressional district is not only different from Seattle, it's way different from Seattle's most liberal 3rd district. So it's not going to be like a cakewalk. I think she'll make it through the primary for sure. And, so what's the issue here? She didn't leave office with people really like, oh, we love you so much. There was a recall election that she survived by 310 votes. So she's
meaning she won.
Exactly. It does mean she won, but did she lose long term?
I mean,
Ryan,
the district is very different from, a district that's centered on Seattle, but it's also very different than it was in 1997. And I think one of the structural things that we've seen over the last couple of cycles is that Smith would be vulnerable to a serious left of center challenger. And might be especially vulnerable this cycle because, as you said, the salience of his position on Israel and his position on, our national security issues is as high as it's ever been this year. I don't think Kshama is going to be that challenger. I think if I'm Smith and I'm trying to assess, is this going to be a problem for me? This is something else to add to his list of things to giggle about after the tweet that Scott read out loud. It's not entirely clear to me what Kshama's game plan is here, because she made a big deal when she left city council about how she was leaving electoral politics because that avenue felt like a dead end to her and the team around her, and was trying to do power building and movement building and media building. It's a little
revolutionary workers.
It's a little unclear to me where jumping back into electoral politics fits into that plan.
The Democratic Party, and Adam has been articulate and well-spoken on this, in my view, is currently in a huge identity crisis. We all know that. Is it going to be AOC's party? Is it going to be Adam Smith's party? What lessons, and read David Brooks today in the New York Times, what lessons have the Democrats learned from their shellacking last November and from the next 6 months of life as they've viewed it? So,
And you can view Adam Smith and Kshama Sawant as the two voices on the left of center, even though one's a Democrat and one is very much not. Adam says we got shellacked last year because we went too far to the left, and she says you're taking completely the wrong answer from that. You went too far to the right. You tried to out Trump is what she said on my podcast, Sound Politics, yesterday, which
Listeners
I did make.
We get it. You have a politics, Scott.
Yeah, you had a conversation with her.
If you want to hear it from her, go to Sound Politics wherever you get your podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, she says those two parties are both owned by corporate donors and big pharma.
But then you get to the Seattle Times columnist Danny Westmead, who wrote that he's going to underestimate her, which is a danger to journalists and opinion writers if you underestimate someone like her. But he's going to underestimate her because she's going to have a lowercase I after her name on the ballot if she gets where she's going. Independent, and independents sound great. Everybody loves it. Oh my gosh! And then they don't vote that way. No. So.
Yeah, everybody wants a third party until they turn in their ballot.
Get a look at it.
Everybody, including Elon Musk, who's talking about creating a third party yesterday.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and her claim on that is, because of course people have said that to her, independent can't win. And she says that, I'm quoting her, the only way to create a real dynamic around your campaign is by making it very clear that you have nothing to do with these Democrats. You're not looking to be friends with them. You don't care when the corporate media demonizes you. You're here to fight for and alongside working people. Working people are hungry for a fight, and that is what we are offering.
Well, sorry.
There you go.
Well, I was just going to say toward the end of, it's giving me flashbacks to 2023 when she was finishing up her decade in city council. And she, spent much of her time criticizing progressive Democrats like AOC and our own Pramila Jayapal. And she does to me represent a lot of the factionalism of the left and those independent candidates that you always see on your ballot, especially in August, the Freedom Socialist Party, the Freedom Workers Party, the Revolutionary. She split last year from the Socialist Alternative Party to create the Revolutionary Workers Party. So I don't know, I think she represents to me some of the best and worst impulses of the left and its factionalism.
Well said.
So the ballot will not say independent, it will say Revolutionary Workers Party?
No, from what I read, I actually don't know the answer to this. I think it says independent.
Okay.
It might say prefers Revolutionary
And
Workers Party
because
we do party
thought.
preference.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a segue for you. In the last couple of weeks, Kshama Sawant has been back at City Hall. Right? We've been hearing her bringing not supporters at the number and the noise level of before, but she's been opposing this ethics code proposal on the Seattle City Council. That code change was sponsored by Cathy Moore, who is our next topic on Week in Review. Seattle City Council member Cathy Moore. So
Not for long.
Not for long. This is the news this week. She announced that she is leaving office, resigning after only a year and a half into a 4-year term because of unspecified health and personal issues. And one of us spoke with Cathy Moore this morning or yesterday,
Yes,
Joni?
guilty as charged here.
What did she say?
So there's so much hand-wringing and speculation about all this. First of all, and the way she spoke with me, there really is a serious personal health situation for her, and we all have to wish her the best for that. And secondly, and I know this is going to get to be kind of fun here, she mentioned the degradation of civic culture since Sawant arrived in Seattle, and frankly, since Trump landed in D.C. Their tactics are not that different as far as that goes, I'm saying. Now, it is really weird, don't you all think?
You're saying Sawant and Trump's tactics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I compared
one
them.
has a little more
I
power
compared
than
them.
the other. One is
Sure.
one minority vote on a council.
But it's a lot of really, rancorous talk that leads to things that I don't think are good for our politics here. Going to people's houses to protest, not letting actual debate go by without the council having to go hide under the chair somewhere. I mean, I don't think it's been good for us, and I think it does legitimately affect Seattleites, to go to your question to all of us earlier. If the best people who can run for these offices decide, I don't know if I want protesters outside while my kids are playing on the playground or the front lawn or wherever they are. I don't know if I want that. I think we really have to consider, of course, you're allowed to do it, and maybe, we're overreacting to some of the noisy stuff, but just because you're allowed to do it doesn't make it good for Seattle's situation here. So,
I mean, Joni, I'm so glad to be on the show with you today. I'm
Me
so
too,
glad to
me
meet
too.
you. I've, loved your work for years, and I think it is completely ridiculous to equate Kshama's tactics to Trump's tactics. They are a complete order of magnitude different from
I'll
one
give
another.
you the magnitude. I won't give you the change.
If magnitude is the only difference, then everything is only a difference of magnitude, and the magnitude matters. I think Council Member Moore, her personal health issues aside, which of course, I wish her all the best for, has shown, I think, time and time again during her time on the dais that she was not willing to take the heat that comes with being an elected official. These jobs are not life sentences. You run for them. You decide to step into being a public servant. And part of what you do when you make that decision is to say, I'm going to be there to hear from my constituents, not just the ones I agree with, not just the ones who say it in a way that I want to hear it, but all of them. And she and some of her colleagues who are still on council have shown themselves over and over again to be unwilling to hear from all of the folks who they represent. And, and they also, I think it's fair to say, Councilmember Moore leaves without a terrific track record of accomplishment. I think you'd probably say her biggest accomplishment is the soap and soda legislation that happened in the early part of last year.
This is prostitution, loitering, and keeping people out of a certain zone if they've been accused of trying to.
Well,
buy
that's
sex.
the subject of the legislation. It's a
Yeah.
question of whether or not it actually does anything. And I think a fair analysis would probably say that it doesn't have much of an effect. And beyond that, there was a lot of talk of bringing a new spirit of unity, bringing a new spirit of collegiality to the council. And under the council president's leadership, we've seen 3 departures in the last
Council
couple of
President being
months.
Sarah Nelson.
Council President Sarah Nelson.
Well, first of all, this council gets along better than the previous one. That's one thought.
That's
But I'll
not
just
entirely
point you
clear
all
that
to,
that's
I'm
the
not
case.
here to defend.
I don't know if that's true. Would they get along with each other? I would say worse, but with the mayor better.
I think it's true
I
of
agree with
both.
Scott.
I think it's true of both. But anyway, we can
Sure,
disagree
sure.
on that.
Yeah.
I'm not here to defend Cathy Moore, just because I talked to her or anything like that. I will say that the Seattle Times editorial board wrote a smart editorial today that said, we brought in so many new people at the same time. Is it any wonder that they don't know how to schmooze and work through and prep for legislation that they're going to introduce? You don't go into the council and say, here's this cute little proposal I have, but by the way, I've talked to only 2 of you. I mean, you're supposed to
Completely
work it
agree.
through the council, and many of the new members, and that includes Joy Hollingsworth, who's a really, really good new council member, but from last year, many of them don't have those skills yet, or haven't used them if they have them, and so that's a fair critique of that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find so frustrating about that reality, which I completely agree with, is it's particularly galling to see the inexperience, the inattention to detail, the sloppiness that has come out of this council under council president's leadership when they ran as the adults in the room. The pitch for a lot of these folks when they ran was, we are the responsible adults who are going to take the serious issues seriously. We're going to do the work. We're going to be evidence-based. And that has not been the experience that they've delivered once they've been in office.
I just want to say, I don't know all the ins and outs of decorum rules in the council. We're talking a lot about people who are, shutting down council, what you said, requiring them to go hide in a corner or something like that. You get, they have to call recesses. That is a tough, maybe, situation to do your job in. Again, I mean, you're getting paid $137K a year when your state house and Senate colleagues get, down in Olympia get half that. But
what's the price that you should be paid to have protests outside your house?
And I'm not sure if protesters have gone outside these city council members'
Cathy
houses.
Moore's house, yes.
Cathy's okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that. That's a good point. But I do think inside city council there are decorum rules. They've banned, for instance, the guy who does Sig Heil's in council, Alex Zimmerman.
He's banned from a lot of locations.
He's banned from a lot of places. So there are ways to engage and honestly keep out people who are, causing causing problems, but it takes perseverance. It took perseverance to kick Zimmerman out. He might be back. I can't remember.
Sometimes they're 2-year hiatuses. For him.
Exactly. It takes.
We need to renew them.
He waits
like
till
a driver's
the
license.
start date. Do you know who we're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. Anyone who goes to a city council meeting knows Alex Zimmerman. He's a guy who gets up and does a sig
He
heil.
comes to my Seattle University event.
Sure. But you can kick people like that out. And I'm sorry, I don't see the communists who are breaking the rules about sometimes like, campaigning, for instance, for Sawant. I don't see those people. They're different, obviously, but you can also give them a hiatus to have them take a break. There are ways to work around it, and it just takes perseverance. And this council doesn't seem to have much perseverance.
Yeah. Let me give listeners an example. Not everyone is as familiar.
Yeah,
this is one of soon-to-be former city council member Cathy Moore's well-known moments. I'm curious whether you might listen to this, and I don't know who you'll sympathize with, but this is a few months ago. Protesters disrupted a public hearing. They did yell at council members. People say yelling a lot these days, but they actually were yelling to do more to help asylum seekers.
You're kind of yelling at me right now.
I'm really
And you're yelling at me.
Listen, I'm a father of teenagers. I have learned that, as they say, telling is yelling. If you just say something directly with a period at the end instead of a smiley emoji, you are yelling.
Why don't you do up talk?
You got that
works.
up talk?
That works.
So anyway, these protesters were eventually ordered out, and some of them started banging on the windows.
It's more than loud. It is a physical threat to the safety of each of us on this council, and it is a threat to the operation of our civic institution. And I want the record to be clear that I physically feel threatened.
She called for some protesters to be arrested, and a half a dozen of them were.
See, to me, banging on the walls, the windows of city council, didn't anyone get charged for or can't you give them a break from coming to city council? That's breaking decorum rules to me.
Well, I also think that, in these conversations, the examples that are often brought up are the most egregious things that everyone, including me, can agree. Going to someone's house and protesting, our elected officials deserve to feel safe physically. We're a society of laws, and they should feel safe. But this is not what most of these conversations are about. Most of these conversations are about folks being strident, folks being loud, folks yelling, and that all just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I was going to be fine with the knocking on the windows, and here you.
Worried.
I
don't know that.
Really?
I don't know that much about the decorum rules of city.
At least they're
hall.
outside. Were they inside or outside? I got to be sure.
They
It would be a little odd if they were inside banging on the windows.
They were outside. I believe they were outside the chamber, banging on the windows of the chamber. In the end, I think there are ways to deal with a breach in decorum rather than quitting your job.
There aren't. And I would have liked to, that's a very good point. I would like to see a whole group of them figure out what decorum is permissible and what isn't, and when do you have to leave and have quiet time or whatever it's called, and something like that.
Well, sorry. Did you
no,
finish?
I'm done.
Sorry. To the point of leaving, whether she should leave her job. Again, she cited health issues.
I should be
don't
clear.
know anything about
And
that.
she was emphatic about
very personal,
that
very
today.
personal stuff.
Emphatic.
But she also didn't have to, in the same breath, cite the rancor on the council when she's talking about why she's leaving. I didn't have the conversation you did. I bring this up because her departure, you can decide to think about this what you want. She's leaving on July 7th. The council then has to fill her position for a year and a half.
That's right.
Before there's an election. So do you, separate from her health issues, the idea of, do you think, let me put it this way, does it disfavor her constituents, her 5th district constituents, that she decided to leave, as Tammy Morales decided to leave?
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think she should have announced before the filing period in May, because that would give her time to leave July 7, and then there's an election to be in November, and so they would be able to elect the person they want for the 5th district. But life doesn't always work like that.
Yeah.
I don't know any more details than I've said about her health situation.
Right. Okay. So one more, before we take a break, one more development in local politics and resignations or lack thereof. Let's see. If you own property, then you know what a county assessor is, the responsible for how the county values your property for tax purposes. In King County, the assessor is John Wilson. He is running to be the next King County executive, basically the mayor of King County. Wilson's ex-fiance has filed, I think, 2 restraining orders against him in the last year. And was it a judge that granted them? They were granted.
Commissioner,
Commissioner.
County Superior Court Commissioner.
Superior Court Commissioner. Again, KUOW politics reporter Scott Greenstone, you've been covering this. What does we'll say more, but for now, what are we talking? What does the ex-fiance allege that he did?
Yeah. Well, last year there were a number of allegations about him pestering her when they broke up, refusing to stop contacting her through aliases online, her family members then showing up, tracking her location, showing up to addresses where she moved to get away from him, and finding her in public, forcing his way into her house to kiss her. That restraining order was dismissed when the two made up last year. So in January, I think it was a little bit awkward for a lot of people. I think a lot of politicians, when they saw this, including myself, wondered whether to report on it. But she filed another restraining order after a more recent breakup last month. And that one alleges that they sort of tried to make it work, but he, for instance, slammed his hand down in a public restaurant when they were talking and, was yelling, maybe just being very direct, about how her allegations had been causing him political trouble. And he was pressuring her to release a video to the media. So now he's being called on to resign by the mayor of Seattle, a number of county council members, State Senator Mankadingra, and also to end his bid for county executive. Which again, county executive is like the mayor, except if the mayor, you also run the county jail, you run the King County Metro, the buses. It's a big job. You'd run the sheriff's department. And so a lot of people are saying he's just not fit for the job, including the one he's in.
Okay. We were asked, why he should resign. Should he resign? Should he resign before the allegations are proven? And I'm going to say no. Not yet. I mean, and it's sort of wild to me that two of his opponents in the county executive race, council members Claudia Belducci and Gurmay Zalale, are calling for him to resign. Does he need any help in making himself look bad? It appears that he is going to be able to take care of some of their concerns without their help.
We should say he said that these allegations are exaggerated, but has not denied them. I asked him directly over text.
But isn't he entitled to due process?
That's a legal standard. That's not a standard for how we should hold our
due
public
process. These
account.
People run for election. They hold these jobs, and it reminds me of Al Franken, the Senator Al Franken of Minnesota case, where he was forced out so rapidly with so little concern for what actually occurred. And like I said, he is going to, what's going on and the things we keep reading about are going to take care of this.
I mean, of course Wilson should resign. We can afford to have a higher standard for our public officials than we do for others. We can afford to have a different standard for whether someone should be in public office than whether they should be criminally prosecuted. These are different questions, and of course Wilson should resign. I feel less strongly about ending his race for county executive because the voters will be able to assess that. That's he wasn't going to win anyway. He probably wasn't going to clear 5% of the vote. So
and point of order, I guess, or point of whatever. This isn't Robert's rules. I know this is not a public meeting.
You want to make a point, and you're going to make it right now.
He actually, whether or not he resigns, he also answers to the voters in his current job because we elect the county assessor for some reason. I have no idea why. So all of these people calling on him to resign can't do anything about it. So it is up to him. And he has told me, he has said on the radio, he has said in statements, he is not going to resign. So the only way he can be removed is through a recall election, through the voters.
So, Ryan, why, I guess, Joni sort of already made this point, I guess, but why should he resign when he's saying that the allegations are exaggerated? That's a vague term. We don't know how exaggerated he thinks the allegations are. So why? He says his attorneys advised him, to not do any more than this and say any more than this. Why you seem so certain? Of course he should resign. I mean, an allegation is just an allegation. So,
Sure. I mean, I am not a lawyer, and I've also never had a restraining order taken out against me, and I understand that, or two, for that matter, and I understand there's some standard of evidence for restraining orders being put in place. So
okay,
whether
so
they're
that's your standard.
It's a
A
standard,
restraining
certainly.
order granted. Yeah, no, that's fair.
But you know, I just think that like. You know, there's some problems that you sort of stumble into in the course of your life, and it could happen to anybody. And then there's some problems that, you know, when they come up, you're like, well, something's up there.
And I should be clear, these are temporary restraining orders, and the first one that I referred to was dismissed when they didn't show up to court. They made up.
Oh, okay.
And this one has not been sustained yet. On June 30th,
Oh.
there will be a hearing on it. So they are all temporary right now. But there is there's screenshots of texts. There is, yeah, I guess.
I'll just say that I know both of these people professionally. I want to cover my eyes. I don't want to hear another word, but here I am talking about it, about how they're handling a busted romance through all these public documents. I wish they didn't do that. Can I do anything about that? No, but don't forget there's two people here. And we're saying that one should immediately suffer the consequences of losing his job. I just need a little more process. I never say that in Seattle. But
I'll be that's true. I'll be very interested. I do think, as far as process goes, I want to see the, Councilmember Balducci is calling for an ombuds investigation into whether or not John Wilson used county resources to
that's all fair.
stalk
That's
and
all fair.
harass her.
Let's know more about that, but let's not say, okay, you're gone. I read your text. I read your restraining order and the response, and you're out of here. I'm just not comfortable with that.
You don't think that private conduct crosses over enough into public?
Well, private conduct often does, but there's a little bit more that we need to know before we jump to we're going to tell him what to do about his current job.
Okay.
Now, if we're talking about the race, we've already talked about that.
Okay, fair, good. Interesting mix of opinions. So we got some wait and sees. We'll see who's the new council member for Cathy Moore. We'll see what happens with this second restraining order. We'll see what happens in the congressional race. Why do we even bother having a week in review if we just see what happens? We didn't settle anything.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the week. We haven't reviewed the week. We're talking about the weeks to come.
We didn't say anything like,
okay,
only time will tell. So
only time will tell.
If we said that, we shouldn't.
Only time will tell, and telling is yelling.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
94.9 KUOW Seattle. It's 12:38. In other news this week, you may have heard that Congress is preparing to vote on a bill that would claw back funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. As a listener, you may want to learn more about this proposal and its impacts. Reach out to the offices of your representatives or senators to stay informed on the issue and visit kuow.org/funding. Thanks.
Support for KUOW comes from Eco Design and Maintenance, family owned and specializing in start to finish exterior design using materials and methods that help to reduce environmental impact. From landscapes to hardscaping, outdoor spaces designed to be functional and long-lasting. More at eco-seattle.com. And from the Seattle Art Museum, offering a range of art experiences from conceptual art exhibitions to outdoor events at the Olympic Sculpture Park. More info and details about current exhibits and events for the summer at seattleartmuseum.org.
It is sunny and 73 degrees in South Seattle. Forecast says we'll reach 78 today.
You hear my guess, we can't wait to get at it. So let's continue the show, shall we? On KUOW's Week in Review, that's a good thing. We're live streaming on YouTube. Hi, everybody. We've got KUOW Sound Politics host Scott Greenstone. We've got columnist Joni Balter. We have the current board member from the Urbanist, Rian Watt. I'm Bill Radke. Anybody ride to the studio on light rail?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did as well.
3 out of 4. But I know you didn't if you live in West Seattle or Ballard or anywhere on the east side. That train is delayed. Ryan, next arrival in 15 years. Ryan, Sound Transit has a new leader and a new plan? Would you say? Do they have a new plan?
Well, they certainly have a new leader.
Yeah.
I think they're working on the plan. I mean, it's clear that light rail shouldn't take this long to build, that it shouldn't be this expensive to build. I think everyone who's involved agrees on that. The question is, how do we make it better, faster? Because we know that this city deserves really great public transit. We know that this city views that as a climate goal. They view it as a mobility goal. It's an economic justice goal for a lot of people. And so they're making these really tough decisions about how are they going to deliver the stuff that the voters have already asked for through ST3, and then how are they going to even think beyond that. And there's some really substantial constraints that are put on Sound Transit by its governing documents, by its governing charter. One of the really obvious ones that I think a lot of people aren't aware of is that Sound Transit has to select the routes for its lines before it acquires the land. And of course, what happens once they've publicly selected the routes is the person who owns
the price goes up. You want this nice little piece of property here?
Yeah. I mean, so people are shocked when Sound Transit is paying through the nose for this land, but they have no other option at the moment. So, I know it can be easy to say, why the heck does it take so long and cost so much money to build light rail? But there are some things that are out of their control that need to be fixed before they can do it well.
I just want to stand back a little bit on that and say my impression long-term of Sound Transit is they are a lot cavalier about spending other people's money. And you see that, and this isn't going to save the system, anything I'm about to say, but they had a CEO who left a while back, December 2023. They agreed to pay her salary for the next year. Dow Constantine, the current head of Sound Transit, he's going to be paid $450,000. From what I know about Dow's job search recently, he would have taken $350,000. These are just examples.
Oh.
$250,000. I'm making this up. That part about
if
the
anyone's
amount,
listening, I would take $350,000.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, just because I know that he'd been looking at other jobs is what I'm trying to say about that. And so they always seem like, we can cover everything up here. And then they come, and then as we said earlier, the land costs go up. Of course, we all understand that. Some of the technology is a little tricky, like a train across a floating bridge. A lot of
first
people,
in the
a lot of people
in the
thought
world,
that wasn't going to work, and it may not work so well. So I just, as an agency, and I agree with every single thing you just said about the value of it. I'm for Sound Transit. I just wish they didn't seem so, hey, we can just pay for anything, and you guys, we can't do your route till, I don't know, a long time from now because, we just don't have the money. People pay a lot of money for this system. And I also thought that we don't need to collect fares is another example of we don't really need money until we need
I don't think
money.
that's Sound Transit's position on fares.
Not now.
Yeah.
They
didn't collect fares
for a long
like
time.
4 or 5
for
years.
a long
or something
time.
like that.
Yeah, that's too long.
I'm not a transit reporter. I'm a politics reporter, but I also am an optimist. Insanely enough, despite all that, and I do want to say we always talk about bad news with Sound Transit, and I was looking at the ridership numbers in prep to come on here. They're going in the right direction, even when you just look at the one line. And of course, a lot of that is they opened up new, stops in Northgate, even past. I'm talking about
Linwood.
They're up higher than pre-pandemic numbers, which you can't say in so many other cities in America that are seeing trouble with bringing back their ridership post-pandemic and are looking at big service changes. And I just hope that we keep with that momentum, and whatever changes happen with the future lines, that we don't have any service cuts to the current service because it's going in the right direction. More people are riding light rail.
An analog that I think of as we think about this anticipation for the East Side light rail is there was that moment before the waterfront reopened where it had been years and years of work and process, and all of the bad things and all of the cost overruns were top of mind, and folks hadn't experienced the benefit yet. And now here we are in our first full summer of that waterfront, and it's one of the great public spaces in the city, in the country probably. And I think there's going to be a similar moment once that East Side light rail opens up and you can finally take a train across the water. I think that's going to be a really special moment. I think that's going to improve service on the one line. It's going to improve frequencies on the whole north part of that line. I think it's going to be a huge difference, and I think that's going to continue to build appetite for delivering the West Seattle, the Ballard lines as fast as possible. What needs to happen to make that happen is to remove so many steps of process and public engagement from this. I know it's not popular to say we should have less public engagement, but the fact is the public should not be making technical decisions about where stations are.
Well,
the public has expressed their desire for light rail over and over and over again. They've taxed themselves for it. They should let the agency deliver it.
This is the abundance argument. Right?
You sound like Ezra Klein.
Ezra Klein. That local government should clear away some of the, you could call it obstacles or citizen input, but lawsuits and design
We've got
reviews.
citizen input. They want light rail, and they want it fast, and they want it
I think
on
that's
budget.
absolutely true. They believe in the ethic of it, all the ethics surrounding it. There's population growth that's real and driving some of that increased appetite for light rail.
Well, and let's be clear about what you said at the beginning. You wish that they could buy the land first and then announce the routes. That, of course, requires you. When people say, wait a second, I don't like this route, you're like, tough luck, we bought the land already.
Yeah, that's another, that'll be a different show because that debate will happen again, and we'll review it on Week in Review.
In the weeks to come.
To come.
Time will tell.
Time will tell, and telling is yelling. So, therefore, time will yell. That's the transitive
That actually
property.
is time will yell.
Before
I
we
really like that.
Thank you. Time will yell. Before we take a break, have you ever heard the expression where there's drought, there's fire? Because this week, Washington's drought declaration was expanded. Meanwhile, our state's fire prevention and response budget was recently cut roughly in half. Joni, how worried should we be?
Well, a couple things here. And on my time reference on this goes back to an interview I did with Governor Ferguson in April. And he said, and one of the bright spots for the state in the outlook is that we're doing pretty well on fire prevention efforts, that they've been really helpful. I don't think he was like cheering on big, huge cuts, but this was while they were still negotiating in Olympia, the lawmakers and the governor. So, but there are some things that I think are obvious to anybody who goes outside. April, really dry, a little warm. May, pretty dry, and summer's already begun, from what I can tell looking outside. So, I think that there is reason to be concerned. But Lands Commissioner is saying that they're pretty good with the money they have this year. Mm-hmm. The main concern is for next year and a couple years after, because they need a supplemental budget that would provide enough money to cover years going forward.
I just have a point of order that Ferguson was cheering for cuts in the budget. Maybe not wildfire cuts, but he wanted.
Oh, he wanted cuts.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed, of course. But he didn't specifically.
Right. He didn't say lay off the firefighters.
Yeah, no,
my time reference on this goes further back than Joni's, because I remember when a lot of the forest rangers were laid off by the federal government soon after Trump took office, and I talked to them then. Some of them had been hired back on, and it wasn't, the Trump administration kind of insisted that they weren't laying off any firefighters, but what they did was they laid off rangers who would part-time during fire season work as firefighters. And they hired some of those people back, but the worry was they were supposed to be training in April and May.
That's right. And they were uncertain because they didn't know if they would be hired back. And we're talking, like you said, about this ancillary staff that does other things, but during fire season comes in and backs these folks.
I mean, one of the things I would offer here, of course, we should hire people to put out fires. I think that's a good thing to do, is that one of the ways that we can protect ourselves from the really negative damages of fire season is to try to build more housing in Seattle, because the places that are most at risk of destruction from fire, obviously the smoke affects all of us, are the places that have sprawled out into firelands over the last couple of decades. And so finding ways to build more in cities, to build more density in cities, and to avoid sprawl, which is one of the benefits of building where people are already living, I think will help protect us to some extent as well.
Well, Seattle City Councilor Cathy Moore had some problems with the details of those density plans, but she's on her way out.
They won't vote
That's a callback. Yeah.
That's a callback. Thank you. And also a callback to Ezra Klein, because I believe Ezra Klein, author of whatever the abundance book is, would also agree that we need to remove the impediments to building housing, letting those developers
have a day,
do their thing. Yeah. Okay. Shall we take a break again and then hit a few stories we haven't had a chance to mention?
I don't want to take a break, Bill. No, I'm kidding.
None of us want to, but time is yelling. as we've established.
Nicely done.
Let's get right back after this short break.
I'm Rebecca Kesby, host of BBC NewsHour. Today, the explosive end of the bromance. But who will lose the most in the divorce, Trump or Musk? And we have a profile of the controversial US-Israeli group distributing aid in Gaza. Who are they?
You'll find out today on BBC NewsHour. It begins at 1 o'clock, just about 10 minutes from now on KUOW FM Seattle, KUOW Tumwater, KQOW Bellingham.
Support for KUOW comes from Third Place Books. British naturalist Robert Macfarlane discusses his new book, Is a River Alive, with David B. Williams on Thursday, June 12th at 7 p.m. Tickets and details available at thirdplacebooks.com.
And from UW Medicine, recognizing the research community and thanking researchers for working to advance the scientific discoveries that can help improve health for everyone. More at uwmedicine.org. UW Medicine, a higher degree of healthcare.
Now we're talking about independent bookstores while we're taking a break. That's good.
We can do it all.
We can do it all, and we can review. I mean, when you have a team like the Urbanists' Rian Watt, and we have political analyst Joni Balter, and you have KUOW Sound Politics podcast co-host Scott Greenstone, you're set up for success. Okay, we are going to find a reason to smile in a moment. I want to go through a few other things we haven't mentioned. The first one, definitely nothing to smile about. This grim story from central Washington where they're still searching for a man suspected of killing his 3 young daughters. They were found, their bodies, at a campground near Leavenworth. And I bring it up because the mother is trying to get the Amber Alert procedure changed so that next time in this situation we would get cell phone alerts about a possible kidnapping. Have any of the rest of you been following this?
Oh, absolutely. It's just a
just
gut-wrenching, horrible story. Hindsight is, all of it. And here's this very brave mother in incredible amount of grief saying we should look at this system. I mean, it sounds so practical at a time when everything would be normally emotional, right? And so, of course they're going to review the 5 or 6 criteria that you must meet to get an Amber Alert. On the other side of this, of course, State Patrol doesn't want Amber Alert to mean nothing if you respond to everything. So,
And the key point being that the State Patrol says, we issued an endangered missing persons advisory. That's the one that goes to law enforcement, and you see it on the electronic reader boards on the highway. But it's not an Amber Alert because these kids were with their guardian who had custodial rights that the state is saying we didn't have a legal reason to presume
they didn't have a past history of behavior.
That's
is
right.
one thing. There were a couple others.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Scott?
Oh, I was just going to say, I was looking up some stats on this, and we don't issue as many Amber Alerts as several other states. It seemed like we were a little bit middle of the pack. Some states very rarely issue them. There is a question of how often they work, and does doing more actually sometimes help? I'm not an expert on that at all, but I think it's a really interesting thing that you've noticed that in the middle of grief you're looking at policies. The mom is looking at policies. Say, could we change these things? So, I hope that's at least reviewed. It's an interesting conversation.
It will undoubtedly be reviewed.
I'm sure, yeah.
And may lead to the wisdom of hindsight.
Yeah, that can be an emotional way to do something. To say, well, how can I prevent the next one of these from happening? You could understand. Okay, so that's the policy aspect of this awful story from the Wenatchee area, Leavenworth area. Number 2, Joni, you noticed that Microsoft is laying people off again.
Hard to miss, right? So they laid off 2,000 Washington State workers a couple months ago, and just now this week 305 more positions
in Redmond.
Locally. Yes. So this of course affects our state economy. It affects obviously the workers taking all that institutional knowledge out the door. People will wring their hands over how much of this is due to AI, some of it, for sure. Some of the entry-level jobs and some of the engineering jobs apparently can more and more be done by AI. There's also, if you read the latest list, I just read the latest list of who's leaving in this smaller but more recent cut. Listen for the word: product management, technical program management, product marketing, business program management. So a lot of middle managers, again, people with a lot of knowledge and skill who help people work there, are leaving. Could be somebody went to a couple meetings and said, "Why are there so many people here?" That they need to make these cuts. I mean, I think it's just tough on our region and tough on these individuals.
I mean, I certainly feel for the people who are, have lost their jobs in the middle of an increasingly tough economic environment. One of the things I think about here is, in my day job, I spend a lot of time working on the state budget, and one of the things we heard a lot from Microsoft over this last budget was that if the legislature passed more progressive taxes or increases in the taxes that Microsoft pays, they were going to be catastrophic business impacts. They were going to have to lay people off, all these things. And it turns out that the impact of their own poor investments in AI technology that is behind their competitors has a much more harmful impact on their ability to retain employees.
Oh, I thought AI was allowing them to save money by jettisoning.
My understanding is that these particular employees are folks who are working on their AI program after OpenAI released ChatGPT. A lot of these big tech companies scrambled to hire a bunch of folks and build their own equivalent products. Microsoft has not been incredibly successful at that right now. And so I'm thinking both of the people who are laid off, but also, companies will always tell you, these big corporations, that the single thing that's driving poor business results is the tax environment. And the fact is that
Did they say the single thing? I think that they were referring to all of this, which like we are.
We want to debate this, but time is yelling, and I always want to make sure that we tell listeners what made us smile this week. So please.
I love watching the pettiness of the Seattle basketball fans as they see the Thunder lose.
Yeah.
The Thunder lose to the Pacers. It delights me. I want to get more into basketball and many sports. I don't watch a lot, but I love pettiness.
The Storm are great.
It's always fun to watch pettiness. I started this whole show with pettiness.
Seattle will never get over that.
Yeah.
Very quickly. The Oklahoma City Thunder they have a team, and Seattle doesn't because the Sonics left, and they're now
became the Thunder. Yes. Sorry.
Joni.
Good reference. Seattle will never get over the Sonics leaving, ever. But my smile is the UW men's rowing team. Beat Harvard in the national title. We've done it many times over the years. And I say, cue the boys in the boat vibe.
Wow, whipping Harvard when they're down.
Yeah,
Ouch.
they're down. They're down and then they're up sometimes too.
True. Okay. Ryan, did you smile at anything this week?
Just a dour week for me overall. Just grim. No, I'm a huge Sounders fan. My family are all big Sounders fans, and so trying to get ready for the next couple of games, and they're going to be playing in the Club World Cup, and I think they're going to get their butts handed to them by some of the best teams in the world, but it'll be fun to watch it happen.
You're going to go to a lot of matches?
Well, I have an 8-month-old at home, so we're not going to that many matches these days, but have in the past and will in the future.
That you can watch. Okay. I would just say this week, the defense secretary said, stop calling a Navy ship Harvey Milk. Milk was a Navy lieutenant in the Korean War, became the first openly gay man elected to public office in California. He was assassinated. The defense secretary ordered the ship renamed to reflect America's warrior ethos, and the stranger's headline was, Harvey Milk ship too gay, even for the Navy. That made me laugh.
I'm going to start looking for headlines for now.
I need to send that to my dad.
That made me laugh. Laughing is smiling, telling is yelling. Okay, we have to go. That's KUOW's politics reporter, co-host of the Sound Politics podcast, Scott Greenstone. We have the former Urbanist Executive Director and current board member, Rian Watt. Political analyst and contributingist Joni Balter. Columnist Joni Balter might be doing the YMCA dance. This is in the Navy. That's a better choice.
Wait. Oh, I see. You're talking about the music coming next. Let's hear it. Let's go.
Let's hear it. Thank you to Kevin Kniestedt, Bernard Willett, Juan Pablo Chiquiza, Hans Twite. I'm Bill Radke. See you next week.